Welcome to Ifa Stories, where ancient wisdom meets modern storytelling. Step into the sacred tradition of Ifa, rooted in Yoruba land and shaped through centuries of interaction with neighboring West African cultures and preserved in the Lukumi tradition of the diaspora. Here we engage the Ifa Divination corpus, the sacred Odu through which Orúnmìlà reveals insight into destiny and moral order, reflected in the lives of Orisha, Irunmole, Awos, communities, and all who seek guidance. These are not distant myths, but living teachings, bridges between past and present, illuminating responsibility, consequence, and the human path. Honor the wisdom. Reflect on destiny. Journey with us into the heart of Ifa. Subscribe and let the stories speak. Learn more at ifastories.com. Introductory note. This retelling draws on a traditional account as presented in Ifism, the complete work of Orúnmìlà, by Mr. C. Osamaro Ibie. The narration and commentary in this presentation are original to Ifa Stories. Cinematic narrative of Ifa Stories. The marriage of Ejiogbe. Odu Ejiogbe. There are stories that begin with joy and still end in mourning. There are unions that begin in love, yet carry a hidden fracture from the first day. This is not only a story about marriage, it is a story about what happens when sacred instruction is forgotten after joy has already begun. A household may begin with desire, a union may begin with acceptance, but when sacred order has spoken and its instruction is left unfinished, what was hidden does not remain hidden forever. This is the story of Ejiogbe, of Ejialo, and of a household touched by love, omission, affliction, correction, and consequence. In this story, the life of the household is not separated from ritual order. What is done after marriage matters. What is neglected after marriage also matters. And when an instruction has been given through sacred authority, its force does not disappear simply because it has been forgotten. So the story moves with a grave logic. A union is formed, an offering is left undone, and what was neglected begins, in time, to show itself in human life. Ejiogbe woke and met a fair-skinned woman named Ejialo. As soon as he saw her, he loved her. She also desired him, and she offered herself to him in marriage. Ejiogbe accepted her as his wife. But after marrying Ejialo, he forgot what had been required of him. He had been instructed in heaven to give a big he-goat to Eshu after marrying on earth, but he did not do it. The danger was not visible at first. It did not arrive with noise. It did not announce itself at the door. It remained beneath the surface of the household. Ejialo was the daughter of a wealthy chief at Ife. In time, she became pregnant and gave birth to a male child. But the child was crippled from the womb. Then the sorrow of the story became sharper. Ejiogbe could heal other cripples. He could restore others. He could serve others. But he could not heal his own child. The affliction of the child brought grief into the house. Ejialo became frustrated by the birth of the crippled child. She refused to remain with Ejiogbe and care for him. She did not stay. At last, she packed out of Ejiogbe's house and left the child behind. The household that had begun in union now stood in rupture. The child remained afflicted. The wife had gone. And Ejiogbe, who could heal the suffering of others, sat inside his own sorrow. After some time, Eshu, Ogun, and Obalifon met Ejiogbe and asked why he had not been seen outside. Ejiogbe answered with the truth of his condition. Ejialo had left him with a crippled child to look after. Then Eshu volunteered to seek ritual help in heaven. This is important. Eshu was not outside the problem. The forgotten offering had belonged to him. The instruction that had been neglected was tied to him. So when Eshu entered the matter, he entered as the one connected to the road of correction. The two Ewos connected with the case were Edue Koko Meji and Ejo Mejinja. They were the same Ewos who had performed divination for Ejiogbe during his last spiritual journey to heaven. They remembered what had already been spoken. They reminded Ejiogbe that he had been instructed to give a big he-goat to Eshu after marrying on earth, so that his wife would not desert him. The warning had been clear. The he-goat was to be given to Eshu after marriage. That was the boundary in the story. That was the instruction that should not have been left undone. And now the suffering standing inside Ejiogbe's house had to be read in the light of that forgotten command. The child was afflicted. The wife had departed. The house had fallen into grief. And the one who could heal others could not heal what was closest to him. What had once been hidden was now fully exposed. Then the broken instruction was restored. The big he-goat was given to Eshu. After the sacrifice was completed, the two Ewos prepared medicine. They used it to wash the child's legs. And at once, life returned to the child's limbs. The body that had been unable to move now received movement. The sorrow that had sat in the house was answered. The child was healed. But the marriage was not restored. That is one of the deepest weights of this story. The sacrifice corrected one wound. The medicine restored the child, but what had already happened between Ejiogbe and Ejialo did not simply return to its former place. Ejialo did not come back to Ejiogbe. She had already married Oluwari. A portion of the medicine used to heal the child was then prepared into an Ashe command for Ejiogbe. With it, he could command Ejialo to return to him if he desired. He used the Ashe command to call Ejialo to meet him at a place far removed from the environs of Ife. He also used the Ashe command to call Oluwari, the man connected with her departure, to meet him at the same place. And when the two appeared before him, the story reached its final turning point. In that moment, Ejialo and Oluwari were transformed into a flowing river. That river is now called Oluwari in Ondo State of Nigeria. The story had begun inside a household. Now it entered the land. What was once private sorrow became public memory. What was once broken movement became flowing water. The child was healed. The marriage was not restored. And the consequence entered the earth itself. The main teaching is this: joy does not erase responsibility. Love does not cancel sacred instruction. And what Ifa has required must not be forgotten simply because life has moved forward. Ejiogbe's forgotten offering to Eshu is the visible ritual fracture in the story. But this should not be reduced to the idea that one missed sacrifice alone explains everything. The source gives the instruction clearly. Ejiogbe was to give a big he-goat to Eshu after marrying on earth so that his wife would not desert him. That means the offering stood at the threshold of the household. It was not only for the marriage itself. It was tied to guarding the home, preserving the union, and protecting the innocent child from being touched by consequences he did not create. So when Ejiogbe forgot, the story shows more than a missed ritual detail. It shows a household moving forward while the work that had been required was still unfinished. The source names the warning around the wife's desertion. But the unfolding of the story shows that the consequence does not remain limited to the marriage alone. It reaches the household. It reaches the child. It reaches Ejiogbe himself until his grief becomes visible outside the house. Ejiogbe is powerful, but he is not above sacred responsibility. He can heal other cripples. He can help others. He carries spiritual ability. Yet when affliction enters his own house, he cannot heal his own child. This contradiction reveals the spiritual logic of the story. Ejiogbe's power does not fail because he has no ability. His power is blocked because the earlier instruction remains incomplete. The story therefore teaches that spiritual capacity does not cancel ritual responsibility. A person may have power. A person may have knowledge. A person may even help others, but if there is an unfinished obligation in their own life, that unfinished matter may become the place where their strength cannot function. By the time Eshu, Ogun, and Obalaphone notice Ejiogbe's absence, the hidden disorder has already moved beyond private sorrow. It has become something others can see. And from that moment, the road toward correction begins to open. Their questioning opens the way for help to enter. But it is Eshu who volunteers to seek ritual aid in heaven, because the neglected instruction was tied to him. This shows that the problem could not be solved by emotion alone. It required memory. It required aid. It required a return to what had first been spoken. Eshu, the guardian who held Ejiogbe in high esteem, had sought to prevent disorder before it reached the household. The he-goat offering was not only for the marriage. It was meant to guard the home, preserve the union, and protect the innocent child from being touched by consequences he did not create. Eshu stands in this story as the keeper of the unfinished obligation. The offering that had been neglected belonged to his road, so the correction could not move around him. It had to return through him. This is why Eshu's role is so important. Eshu does not enter the story as a random helper. The forgotten offering belonged to him. The road of correction had to pass through Eshu. The Awos do not invent a new answer. They restore the old instruction. Edue Koko Meji and Ejo Mejinja remember what had already been spoken, and through that remembered authority, the child's healing becomes possible. The child is innocent, yet through him, the hidden disorder becomes visible. That is one of the deepest sorrows of the story. The one who suffers is not always the one who caused the problem. The child's affliction does not make the child guilty. The child reveals the burden already present in the household. The healing shows that correction is possible, but the broken marriage shows that not every consequence can be reversed. Ejialo's departure must be handled carefully. The story presents her leaving as serious, but she should not be made the only cause of the rupture. Her departure happens inside a household already carrying unfinished obligation, grief, and an afflicted child. So the story is not only speaking about one woman leaving one marriage. It is speaking about household rupture, innocent suffering, unfinished responsibility, and consequence. The child is healed, but the marriage is not restored. This is the weight of the teaching. Some wounds can be corrected. Some movement can return. But what has already broken may not return to its first condition. The Ashe command does not restore the marriage. It carries the unresolved matter into transformation. Ejialo and Oluwari are joined into one body. They are commanded to move forward forever, never looking back. And from that command, the story says, they become the Oluwari River. So the ending does not simply close the household conflict. It gives the consequence a form that continues moving. No explicit prayer, rezo, chant, or suyere is preserved in this story segment as sacred speech text. The sacred force of the story is carried through instruction, sacrifice, medicine, remembered divination, ashe command, and warning. This story also preserves ritual importance, but it does not teach ritual procedure. It shows that the offering mattered. It shows that correction required a return to what had first been required. The final warning must be heard with care. Within this specific Odu and divinatory frame, the story warns against leaving a marriage, while sacred instruction, unfinished obligation, and household disorder remain unresolved. But this warning should not be turned into a simple, modern rule about marriage. It should not be used to judge every person who leaves a household. It should not be used to silence pain, danger, mistreatment, or situations where safety is at risk. This story, preserved under this Odu, does not teach blind endurance. It teaches that rupture should be understood through the deeper conditions surrounding the household. In modern life, that means asking, what has not been spoken? What responsibility has been avoided? What pain has gone unheard? What burden is being carried by someone who did not create it? And who needs to be called in before the damage becomes irreversible? Sometimes that may mean honest communication. Sometimes it may mean elders, family, spiritual counsel, trusted guidance, or professional support. And when harm or danger is present, safety must come first. The traditional warning remains serious, but the modern explanation must hold together the sacred warning, the responsibilities in the household, the need for communication, the safety of the people involved, and the reality that some relationships carry harm that must not be ignored. Final teaching seal. The marriage of Ejiogbe teaches that what is forgotten at the beginning may return later with great force. It teaches that sacred instruction must not be treated as optional. It teaches that healing may come even when restoration does not. The child is healed, but the marriage is not restored. The offering is completed, but the consequence has already entered the world. What Ifa preserves in story, it preserves so that later lives may be warned in time.